BBC News at midday. The Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, has defended what he described as the very robust steps being taken by the government to control illegal migration. Appearing on the BBC's Sunday with Laura Koonsberg, Mr Jenrick said it was fair and reasonable to ask adult male migrants to share hotel rooms in order to reduce costs to the taxpayer. And he said plans to deport migrants arriving in small boats would stop the system from coming under what he described as intolerable pressure.
The asylum system is riddled with abuse, and the way to tackle that is by changing fundamentally the way we handle asylum. And that's what we're doing with our illegal migration bill. That's got an entirely different premise to the old system. It's saying that if you come here illegally, you'll then be returned home or to a safe third country like Rwanda. That will create the deterrent we desperately need.
India's Railways Minister says the cause and people responsible for the country's worst train crash in more than 2 decades have been identified. The accident in the eastern state of Odisha killed 275 people. Here's Ambaras Etnirajan.
India's Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav said there was an issue with the electronic safety system regulating signals, but he insisted they had to wait for the final investigation report. Officials in Odisha state have now revised downwards the number of dead to 275. They also said most of those injured in the crash had now left hospital, while around 400 were still receiving treatment. Dozens of victims are yet to be identified.
The Cabinet Office has warned Boris Johnson that he could lose public funding for his legal team at the COVID inquiry if he deliberately undermines the government. In extracts of a letter published by the Sunday Times, Mr Johnson is told that he will have to submit any witness statements to officials so redactions can be applied. Chris Hope from the Daily Telegraph told Radio 4's Broadcasting House it was a significant development.
Don't forget, Boris Johnson has just got rid of his previous lawyers and got his own ones now, and he's now pursuing his own agenda here by sending off his information as he sees it. The problem the Cabinet Office has got is, what are you sending, Boris? Are these secret things that need to be dealt with or looked at or redacted, to use that term? And that's why there's a debate going on between whether it's the right approach, and that's why they're so upset.
The Cabinet Office insists the letter to Mr Johnson was intended to protect public funds, so lawyers paid for by the taxpayer are not used for any other purpose than aiding the inquiry. The General Secretary of the GMB Union, Gary Smith, has criticised Labour for what it calls his naive plans to stop issuing new licences for oil and gas production in the North Sea. Mr Smith said the UK faced the choice between producing its own oil and gas or importing more. Labour says existing fields in the North Sea would continue production while it invested in renewables. The new head of the CBI has insisted the business lobby group does have a future after a string of sexual misconduct allegations. Rain Newton-Smith was speaking ahead of Tuesday's crucial vote by CBI members on her plans to restore trust in the organisation. She said she regretted having to lay off staff after dozens of businesses suspended their memberships, but that the group needed to change to survive.
I've come back to fight for the organisation, to fight for the jobs and the people within that organisation. And I'm really determined to do it. But to do that, we need the backing of our members. And what we have set out is a whole programme of change so that we can show that we've got the right culture, that we're addressing any workplace misconduct, that people feel supported if they raise issues.
King Charles is giving up his 3-bedroom property in Carmarthenshire. The Llanywelyd estate is owned by the Duchy of Cornwall, so he's been paying rent since he became king. Royal sources told the Sunday Telegraph that he remained passionate about Wales, but wouldn't be able to use the house in the same way as when he was a prince. BBC News.